We have just finished our discussion of simplifying rational expressions. Now we're going to move on to equations where we have in an equation there's one expression set equal to another expression, and we need to make sure that everything is good to go, and so we'll solve it and all that stuff. To solve it, generally what we're going to try to do is simplify the equality so that both sides have a common denominator. It would be very nice if it was the least common denominator, but it's not a requirement. So just make sure we have a common denominator. And once we have a common denominator, we're going to use this one-to-one property of rational equations to say, well, the denominators are the same and we have different numerators, but if the denominators are the same, the numerators have to be the same as well, and just drop the denominators. This is actually equivalent to saying multiply both sides by c, so mathematically we're justified. Okay, and then from there on, simplify as needed, and make sure that we don't have any restricted values. So make sure to, and this is another way of saying, check your answer. Okay, so this first one on the left here, we're going to work on to get a common denominator. That is going to be, well, let's see, this side is just a 1. Common denominator is going to be the x squared times x plus 1. So if you need to make that note just off to the side, we have x squared, or x minus 2 and x plus 1. Okay, and then also I'm going to say that x cannot be 2 or negative 1, so those are our restricted values. Okay, so going ahead and solving all this, great. Let's see, so I have to multiply this by the missing piece of the common denominator, so x plus 1 to both numerator and denominator. Second term is going to be multiplied by x minus 2 to both numerator and denominator. When I'm doing this, I am multiplying by 1, so it doesn't change the value. And then the right-hand side of the equation needs both terms of the common denominator, so x plus 1 rather, x minus 2 over x plus 1, x minus 2, and then what I end up getting, I'm just going to say the left-hand side, there's a common denominator of x minus 2 times x plus 1, and that also appears on the right side. Okay. So I end up with 3x plus 3 once I distribute, right? And then same thing in the next term, 2x minus 4. And the right-hand side is just going to be x minus 2 times x plus 1. Okay. Now, this is where I've completed step 1. I need to move on to step 2. So I drop the denominators, or again, multiply by the denominator. And I end up with combining terms, 5x minus 1, and foiling on the right side, x squared minus x minus 2. Okay, and then now solve for x, so get one side equals 0, x squared minus 6x plus 1, or minus 1, rather. Oops. So let's see, does that factor? Well, not the last time I checked. So instead, what do we have to do? Our favorite friend, x equals opposite b. Okay, square root, or quadratic formula. So 6 plus or minus square root 36 plus 4 all over 2. So I end up with 6 plus or minus, let's see, this is going to be 2 root 10 over 2, or equivalently 3 plus or minus square root of 10, okay? And certainly these are not the same as our restricted values, so I'm going to say that those are going to go ahead and be our answers, okay? Now, the second one is a bit more interesting, so I want you to pause the video and try it on your own. I'm going to pause the video and show you the work. And here's my work. So got common denominator, multiplied by it. I did have to factor right from the get-go in the denominator on the right side. So I did all that, multiplied by the missing pieces of the common denominator. Okay, great. Dropped the denominator here in this step. Okay, and then got everything to one side. Okay, again, you might have to do more steps to get to that part. But from there, I was able to actually factor this nicely, and I got 2 and minus 6 as my answers for C that satisfy this equation. But at the end, I reported only minus 6. That's because I checked my answer. Okay, if I noticed, 2 ended up being a restricted value, meaning I can't have 2, so I could only have an answer of 6. be careful. Okay, make sure to check your answers. All right, and that's kind of the idea with rational equations. Again, these do take a little bit of time to work through, so also keep and in doing so, you need to pay very close attention to your signs, and also make sure that you're not making any copying errors.